Hey fabricators, and welcome back to another episode of Advancing Fabric, and we have a huge news update for you. Advancing Fabric is brought to you by Advancing Analytics, your data and AI and analytics experts. And I'm joined once again by my co-fabricator, Johnny.
Hey fabricators.
Hey Johnny. So yeah, we've got a massive update for this month, kind of coinciding with Microsoft Build that happened at the beginning of the week. I'm blown away with the amount that we have to get through.
Yeah, tell me about it. I don't feel like I've still processed all of the announcements from FabCon in March, and now we've got a whole new host of announcements coming out of Microsoft Build as well. So should we just jump straight into the announcement blog?
Yeah, definitely. So let's round them up for everybody. We can pick out our most favorite ones as well. So we've got the blog here, and it's all like everything's kind of wrapped up in here for Fabric. So all the details around this May update that was dropped on Tuesday. We've got some announcements talking around the roadmap updates, just some changes to the roadmap so that you're kind of kept informed of what's in the pipeline and what's coming up. But yeah, let's dig into it. We have a lot in the contents here.
Yeah, so first thing I would love to call out is more great news around folders and subfolders, which we know everybody loves so much. There is now a new preview feature in Power BI Desktop that allows you to publish directly to a folder or subfolder. So previously, whilst you could move artifacts around, create them in the service inside of a folder, it's now just a nice little sort of quality of life improvement that if you're using Power BI Desktop to author a report, you can publish it straight to the folder that you want that to be in. So nice little quality of life improvement one there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else you want to kind of just touch on through modeling and data connectivity? There's a lot in here just around like DAX. You've got a new managed relationships dialogue, blah, 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 blah. There's lots of kind of little announcements, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons. Yeah. I would be here all day if we go through all of them, I reckon. So yeah, always worth checking out. The DAX query view, like I'm a big fan of being able to write DAX queries as opposed to just DAX expressions. So the query view going generally available in Power BI Desktop is a nice one to have a look at. And the Copilot improvements for that DAX query experience as well is always another good one too.
Yep, yeah. So a couple of ones I wanted to call out. We've got a Git integration mentioned under the developers heading here. So that's Git integration support for the direct lake semantic models. So this is great to see more items being supported by Git integration and starts to really fill out that picture for developers to have everything under source control within Fabric. So great to see that. It's kind of starting to lead you towards more reliable and kind of consistent development as well. What else was there? So lots of different pieces in here. We've got lots of visualizations. That's usually the biggest one every month, isn't it? There's lots of little changes to the visualizations and things, isn't there?
Yeah, mostly custom apps and that are sort of custom apps that are published by third parties. Always loads to get into there.
Yeah.
And under the core heading, I think one of the things I'm sort of looking forward to playing with more is around the Fabric automation type stuff. So I think we've mentioned some of this before because it's kind of a subject that's kind of dear to my heart. But the Fabric APIs, which you can use to help sort of manage and monitor your Fabric tenant in a more programmatic fashion. There's basically some of those APIs are now into general availability, which is good. There's also some work going on to consolidate some of the APIs. So for a long while there, kind of some of the more established Power BI APIs that are used for like admin and monitoring still existed. And then we had the Fabric ones come along as well. And they didn't, the Venn diagram didn't overlap at all. They were kind of like two separate things. So if you wanted to do some monitoring of some Fabric artifacts and you wanted to do some monitoring of some Power BI artifacts, you had to deal with two APIs, and now consolidating those so that you can basically have your Power BI artifacts included in the responses for the Fabric API calls, which would be good. Good one this for people that are looking to automate. So you can use those APIs for things like publishing and creating artifacts, and monitoring is a big one as well. So We have our sort of own Power BI monitoring solution, Spectate, that uses those APIs, and it's sort of good to see that ecosystem is expanding so that we can sort of build out more observability over that estate.
Yeah, definitely. I remember using some of the early Power BI API endpoints, and the development was slow going. You could tell it was a bit of a back burner thing, but yeah, like every single month we're seeing updates to the APIs and changes and streamlining and things like that. So it's obviously like quite a core focus within Fabric, which is great to see. One of the things, or a couple of things I wanted to call out, just touching on OneLake, is we've got external data sharing. So if you didn't see that FabCon announcement back in March, this is now in public preview. So it gives us the ability to basically share our data externally, like similar to Delta sharing, I'm assuming. Not had a chance to actually play with it yet. I think that's something that would make another video. Pretty good detail in there. But there's some kind of how-to, just going through how to actually do that and how simple it is to play with and set up. One of the other things was shortcuts to on-premises and network-restricted data.
That's cool.
Yeah. So with the introduction of the Fabric on-premises data gateway just recently, we got access to all of our data sources that have never really quite transitioned to the cloud. They're sitting away, maybe it's a PC under your desk or it's in an actual server farm somewhere. And now we can actually just shortcut to them instead of ingesting that data into Fabric. Obviously, I'll put a caveat in there that if you're dealing with operational databases, you maybe want to rethink that because you'll be putting like quite a lot of extra load onto those databases if you're just using that shortcut functionality. But it definitely opens up a lot of options for people.
Yeah, definitely another good one that people have been crying out for as well. I guess sometimes we take for granted that not everybody is necessarily in the cloud yet. So
yeah, definitely. I can scroll right down to the next one that I wanted to mention was another Copilot. I'm not too jaded with it yet, but it is great to see that the support is available in all the experiences in Fabric. So no matter what you're doing, you've got that kind of Copilot helper in there. So we've got the one for data warehouse now, and that's in there. It allows you to kind of generate SQL, fix your own code and things like that, and kind of get a context of what you can do in terms of tasks and operations in the data warehouse. It's called out in here that it's not actually in the SQL endpoint yet, but that is coming soon.
Cool.
And obviously, standard licensing restrictions apply. You've got to have an F64 and above for that to be available as a feature. So what else have we got in here? If we are going down to data engineering, one of the interesting ones that I've been playing about with just this week is the runtime 1.3. So that gives us Delta 3.1 as well in there. So I've been playing about with that. There's some interesting Delta 3 features that are now or should now be available within Fabric that I've been kind of struggling to work with, but I will certainly be coming back and kind of doing another video on that where we talk about what features are available, what you can expect, because you've got Delta 3 features like Uniform, that cross-compatibility with Hoodie and Iceberg, whether we can actually enable that. How that ties in with another announcement that was part of Build was Microsoft's kind of deeper partnership with Snowflake and how they're kind of tackling that compatibility between Iceberg and Delta and enabling that on the Fabric side under OneLake.
Liquid clustering is the other one, isn't it? For a 3.1. It's so liquid clustering is like it's almost like, I think of it like column store indexing effectively, if I can put my old school SQL Server hat on, but done on Delta files.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting one, and I've not had a chance to try it out to see if we've got any other caveats that's maybe not going to work here, but I do need to check it out and see how that works. We've got lots to get through as well. So beyond that, we've got the native execution engine for Fabric Runtime 1.2. So that 1.3 I mentioned there is in public preview now. It was coming out of the experimental public preview, so it's just in public preview. But this native execution engine is pretty interesting as well. And it's essentially, they've rewritten the engine, the Spark engine in C++, and basically looking like there's significant performance improvements as well. So again, that's something we definitely need to dig into. And I imagine Simon elbowing us out the way for that one. Because
he likes to go deep on engines, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. So hopefully we'll see an interesting analysis of that and kind of deeper analysis on what kind of benefits you're seeing there. Lots of other kind of mentions. We've got tagging in notebooks. We've got notebook ribbon changes. Environments, if you use them in your workspaces, is now generally available. We've got Fabric user data functions coming into private preview. So that's along the lines of like kind of using Azure functions within Fabric. So you've got little kind of chunks of code that you can run. Looks quite interesting. One that's tucked away under data science here is Copilot will be enabled by default. So if you've not seen it yet, I created a little short on this. It might be strong to call it a rant, but it's a short to basically say
that ranting.
Not at all, never. But yeah, if your business, basically, Copilot is on by default now. So if you've got an F64, then great, it's there for you to use, and you can work away with it. Brilliant. The restrictions or the caveats start to apply where if your business doesn't actually allow Copilot to be enabled, or if there's some other restrictions with the type of data you're working with, or other kind of business restrictions that you don't want that to be enabled, and you're maybe an admin in charge of that, you can disable it at tenant level, but there is a setting in there which you cannot change at the moment, which delegates the permissions to turn it on and off to your capacity administrators at the capacity level. So if you turn it off at tenant level, you can have a capacity admin that says, hey, I'm turning it on, and they can turn it on at capacity level. So there's probably a little bit of an education thing there internally, and just keeping an eye on whether Microsoft goes back on that change, to be honest, because it seems a little bit chaotic for kind of managing at the tenant level.
Yeah, no, definitely. That feels, like a gap, but as you say, a combination of education, and then we'll sort of see how that feature develops as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like it in the reverse where you can have it enabled at tenant level, but hey, say, look, this capacity, I do not want it enabled here because this capacity is being used by this separate team, and we don't want to be using Copilot with that data, so we can turn it off at capacity level. I love that granularity, but it's just the reverse where you can override those tenant level settings that I'm a little bit concerned about. So what else do we have here?
So I think this feels like a really big one for me, and from all of the announcements I saw coming out of Build, this seems to be the one for me that had the most hype around real-time intelligence. Now, real-time intelligence, that's a brand new heading for like Fabric News, because it's ultimately it's a new experience. So I say it's a new experience. They've taken real-time analytics, they've taken data activator, they've mushed them together, and now basically rebranded it, and it's being called real-time intelligence. So I would say that from an RTA real-time analytics perspective, even though it's been an experience that's been there from the start with Fabric, kind of it was probably, didn't seem to really get much coverage. There might be a few feature updates on a monthly basis. We've probably been a little bit guilty of not going mega deep on it.
True.
But all of a sudden, it's been sort of almost brought to the forefront. Bit of a rebranding, a kind of almost repositioning of some of these things as well. And that kind of repackaging of it as well comes with a whole host of new things that are either things that had been announced that are now going to be generally available, or genuinely some new features. So I was lucky earlier this week, I got to spend some time with Brian Bonk. He's Microsoft MVP. He's like a real-time rock star, or the king of Custo, you could call him.
I hope he didn't get any real-time analytics T-shirts made up, because they're all redundant now, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. He needs a real-time updating T-shirt with a topical slogan on it. But yeah, like speaking to him about some of this stuff was really, really interesting. So there's this kind of item called an event house, which has been in the it's been in Fabric for a while in public preview. I don't think we actually covered it, but ultimately what a event house is for your event streams. You could like event streams historically have been sort of a standalone item. And as an event house, it became a way to sort of package them up. And the way he kind of described it to me was like, if you can think about having a database and having a database server, the event house almost becomes like the server so that you can host all those streams and custo databases inside of it. So the advantage of that is you get into the realms of being able to do like cross-database type queries. So you can, inside of that event house, you can start to like mash up the data across different event streams and different KQL databases, which has got the potential to be really, really powerful for starters. On top of that, you've got the other one that I was excited by. Event houses GA. There's another really, really big one, and I can't remember.
Real-time dashboards.
So it is the real-time dashboards as well. There was one other feature that I can't remember that I was going to call out. Right, we'll forget about it. It can't have been that mind-blowing. Yeah, they kind of, as part of the experience, introduced this real-time visualization piece. So being the resident Power BI geek and being sort of a big data visualization fan, you've always been able to connect Power BI to like Azure Data Explorer, and you've been able to connect its KQL databases in Fabric and do those real-time analytics. But they've now baked in almost sort of its own visualization features that you can sort of build those real-time dashboards inside of that real-time experience. So yeah, like loads of exciting stuff in that space. Something that I definitely am excited to dive deeper on.
Oh, but we stepped over one there. Another Copilot.
Yay! There you go. So you calling that out has called out the other thing that I meant to say, though, the creating database shortcuts to other KQL databases. So this is almost like mirroring of other KQL databases. So it's almost like a virtual. So this idea of inside an event house, you can have cross-database queries. You can also have effectively cross-database shortcuts. So if you've got something that's in like Azure Data Explorer and you want to bring it into Fabric, you can create effectively a KQL database shortcut, which again just feels like another potential sort of powerful way of getting things in there. So all this is really exciting. I guess it, for me, comes with like a bit of a caveat, because like my fear is with all this excitement and promotion of these new features. Like we often hear clients who are like, oh yeah, I need real-time data and I need real-time data. And ultimately I reckon 90%, maybe even 99% of use cases, that kind of more batch-driven analytics is still great. You know, if you want to do sort of deep dive analytics over historical data, then these real-time features probably aren't the right thing to be using. But if you do need that on the spot kind of, live real-time updating type things, that's a little bit more, based on streams, that is the right thing to look at. Just talking about a really, really interesting use case the other day in terms of airport departure lounges, and the fact that sometimes the call for the gate, sometimes you get it 10 minutes before the gate opens, sometimes you get it half an hour before the gate opens, and literally it's to do with if there's a big crowd of people and they're causing a bit of an obstruction and they want to try and free up some space, they'll do some of the gate calls early to try and free people up, because people will walk around literally using real-time streams to sort of say, right, hang on, we've got a bottleneck of people here, right? Let's get some early announcements up. So like real world use case where you've got to be making that decision there and then. That's what it's there for. Not analysing, the last 7 days worth of passenger footfall. That's the more sort of traditional use case.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a case of get excited about all these kind of new features and new functionality that's there. It's like Copilot as well. We've seen that working, doing some hackathons as well, where it's like you can try out Copilot, but unless you've got the data in the right format, it's clean, it's ready to go. You're gonna get nonsense out of it, right? So you need to kind of remember the fundamentals and kind of keep an eye on the fundamentals underneath that as well. Great. So yeah, lots in the real-time intelligence area there as well. Beyond that, Data Factory, few kind of announcements around data flows Gen 2. One of the ones that I'd noticed was data workflows within Data Factory.
Which, unlike, so I had a quick look at this as well. I'll let you go through it, but I have been triggered by the name because I'm just like, well, that just sounds like too many other things already.
Yeah. We were just talking about that as well, where like, please drop this in the comments what your Google search results look like whenever you search for anything Fabric related. The amount of just irrelevant things is ridiculous. Apparently Google now thinks I'm into sewing, so so yeah, there's lots in here that kind of talks about turning this on in this feature and just kind of how you would build out those workflows. But it's basically you're building DAGs, and it's got that functionality in here, and it's using Apache Airflow under the hood. I've not dug into it yet, but it's more functionality and more capabilities within Data Factory, right? It's bringing over some of those things that we were starting to see into Azure Data Factory inside Fabric now.
Yeah, I was just about to say, and it's been a little while since I've touched Azure Data Factory, but last time I did, managed airflow in Azure Data Factory had just landed as a new feature there. And this kind of feels like the Fabric equivalent feature for that. Still think calling it data workflows is a terrible idea. If they'd called it like Fabric Airflow, or I don't know. But yeah, if someone somewhere is going to get data flows and data workflows mixed up, I'm sure. But anyway,
data flows, data workflows, all of them.
Event flows. Is there event flows, or I just made that up? I don't know.
Probably. Yep, and then a small kind of note in here around trusted workspace access and Fabric data pipelines. And this is something that kind of came up just recently around just building out that kind of secure environment. So this is a small piece of the puzzle, but kind of starts to give you that bigger picture of building out a secure Fabric implementation. So that is something worth looking at, and certainly something that I think we'll probably put another video together on building out that kind of secure platform, because there's so many options around. You've got some private endpoints and kind of looking at the capability around private endpoints and manage private endpoints and things like that. And whether you're in like a kind of a financial services organization or government or something like that, these are obviously these are sometimes requirements for building out a platform. So there's been so many organizations and enterprises that have been unable to adopt Fabric because that functionality just wasn't quite there yet. So it's good to see a bit more focus on that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was all the ones that I wanted to call out. Again, lots more in there. Certainly a few that we'll probably pull out. We'll do a couple of shorts on. If there's anything that you are dying to hear about or dying to hear our opinion on, then jump into the comments and let us know. That's something that we want to hear about, and we can talk. We can do another video on. If there's anything that you absolutely love or don't necessarily agree with as well, then please let us know. And always like and subscribe as well. Anything else you wanted to cover off, Johnny?
I mean, I think, as you say, there's so much to get through there. There's part of me itching to sort of get started, sort of trying to dive into this stuff and sort of, get my head around it in more depth. As you say, anything people want to know about, just let us know, and we'll look to sort of bring you some more deep dive content on that front. But yeah, otherwise, all good for me. As Craig's already mentioned, like and subscribe, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Great.
Cheers.